My name is Margaret. Standing in front of my mother and sister, holding a crisp $100 bill in my hand, I felt a strange sense of calm. My mother stared at the bill, her face going through hope, confusion, and then a dark rising fury in just 2 seconds. "What is this?" she whispered. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "That is what I was worth in the family photo." It all started on Thanksgiving. I drove to the lake house with a bottle of vintage wine in my hand. When I walked in, my mother, Linda, was organizing the family photo. She said brightly, "Cameron, you stand right next to Olivia." I smiled, waiting, thinking she'd call me in next. But instead, she just raised her phone and said, "Okay, everyone smile." The flash went off, and I was still standing in the doorway outside the frame, holding my gift. No one even acknowledged me. My father, Richard, gave me a distracted nod and then turned back to laugh at something Uncle Henry said. My sister Olivia was glowing, her hand linked with her new fiancé, Cameron. They were the center of the room, and everyone was drawn to them. I tried to blend in and walked over to my mother, who was bustling around the stove. "Mom," I said, holding up the bottle. "I heard there was good business news. I brought this to celebrate." She barely glanced at the expensive label and said, "Oh, that's nice, Margaret. Just put it on the counter over there." A few minutes later, Cameron came in from the porch with a cheap bottle of sparkling wine. "I brought something to toast with," he announced. Immediately, Linda clapped her hands and said, "Wonderful, Richard. Get the glasses." My bottle sat untouched. My mother raised her glass and said, beaming at Olivia and Cameron, "I want to make a very special toast to the newest partner in our family business, Cameron." Everyone cheered, but my glass stayed at my side. I was the one who had been writing grant applications and proposals for nonprofits. I knew what a partnership agreement looked like, and I also knew that the family business's books were basically my personal bank account. Olivia leaned in and kissed Cameron's cheek and gushed, "And we also have to thank him for finally getting that broken old pier fixed. He supervised the whole thing." Cameron gave a modest little shrug and said, "Happy to help. Linda, it's solid now." My mother looked at him like he was a hero, but I knew the truth. I had paid the final invoice for that pier repair just 9 days ago. The contractor had sent the receipt to my email. I stared at Cameron, this so-called business consultant who probably couldn't tell a hammer from a wrench, taking credit for the check I wrote. It had been like this for years. Since I was young, Olivia was the visionary, the creative one, and I was the practical one. When Olivia had a brilliant but unprofitable idea, I was the one who had to figure out the budget. When I got my first real job writing grants, my mother called me crying about a supplier bill for their little antique shop. "You're just so good with numbers, Margaret," she'd said. So I paid it. Then it was the utility bill for the shop, the insurance for the lake house, and a monthly $1,000 business support check that kept their dream afloat. I used to think being practical meant I was strong and the reliable foundation of the family. But sitting there, watching them toast Cameron for spending my money, I realized that in this family, competence was a punishment. They saw my sacrifice as utility, not love. I wasn't family. I was just an infrastructure, a line of credit. I didn't say goodbye. I slipped out the side door, leaving my expensive wine on the counter. The cold autumn air hit my face, and it felt more honest than the artificial warmth in that house. I drove home in silence. When I got back to my apartment, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and saw the budgeting app with the family business support staring back at me. I canceled all the automatic payments, removed my payment methods from all the relevant accounts. I wasn't burning a bridge. I was just finally bolting my own door. The next morning, my phone was full of missed calls and texts. When the knocking on my door started, it was Linda and Olivia, their faces flushed with rage. "What did you do?" Linda asked, no hello, no concern. Olivia pushed past her and said, "The company fuel card isn't working. My tank is on empty. Are you trying to sabotage me? Are you jealous?" I told them I was done paying for things that weren't mine. Linda snapped, "You weren't uninvited. We were just celebrating Cameron." You're just making a scene because you weren't the center of attention for once. Then she said, You don't have a husband, Margaret. You don't have kids. You have a good job. It is your responsibility to support this family while Olivia is trying to build her future. I said I was done. Linda threatened me, saying I'd regret it and that one day I'd be alone and need them. I stepped back and closed the door, saying, If that day comes, I hope you answer the phone. A few days later, I got an email from Cameron. He said he couldn't be a part of this and was sorry. Attached was an email chain between Olivia and Linda, dated 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Olivia wrote that Cameron was getting soft about the finances and kept asking if I was okay with the new loan structure. Linda replied that they just needed to manage me, keep me paying the basic overhead, so I wouldn't notice them using my collateral for a larger expansion loan after the holiday. A week later, my father called in a panic. A pipe had burst at the lake house, and they needed my help. An hour later, Linda and Olivia showed up at my door, this time feigning desperation. Patricia, you have to help us, Linda said, her voice trembling. That's when I took out the $100 bill and placed it in her hand. And now, standing here, facing their shocked and angry faces, I knew I had finally drawn a boundary.